This is the 6Three podcast. Your home for the most in-depth analysis on all things sports, entertainment, and basically anything else you can come up with. Where we have some of the hottest takes, some of the craziest takes, there we go. Some of the dumbest takes. And where we believe that opinions are like. And now, to your hosts, Joel, Isaiah, and
Ben.
RJ.
Thanks for tuning into the 6-3 podcast, your June 23, 2020 edition. It's probably episode 24 by now. We got Ben on today, filling in for RJ. Appreciate you coming on, especially because baseball's back, and Ben is the baseball, genius of anyone.
How about that, but appreciate it.
Don't be humble. Don't be humble. This is exciting. July 24, it sounds like. Baseball's expected to come back. What do you know about this, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't get a deal done, but obviously, I'm excited as a baseball fan for baseball to come back. It's just kind of disappointing though that the owners and the players could never come to a consensus. And I think they missed a really big opportunity they would have been the only major sport on TV, during this time if they were able to come up with something. They could have reached a bunch of other fans, not even just like the diehard fans like myself, and they missed that opportunity. So we'll see. I mean, obviously baseball fans are going to tune in, but I think they missed a good chance to gain more fandom during all this.
Yeah, it seems like it is a little bit of a dying sport. Most of the fans now, present company excluded, are in their 50s now and 60s. You got a lot of older fans that have been around, know it as America's pastime, and I think a lot of people are starting to believe that baseball as a sport has kind of taken some hits since the steroid era has come and gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. They missed a huge opportunity to get that exposure and maybe people to get invested into spending time watching it again.
Yep. And it's just sad to see as a baseball guy, played baseball, grew up with it, whatever. It's just really sad to see. And I'm going to be excited for a 60-game season. I mean, that'll make things really interesting, but obviously I wish it could have been more. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and it sounds like they're sticking to their 10 teams in the playoffs. So Everything's pretty normal except 102 games shorter than usual.
Yep.
But I'm just happy any kind of sports that are back. I'm sick of watching marble racing every week.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I was watching some real good cornhole tournament highlights earlier today. So.
Those guys are good, man.
Yeah.
They sink home.
But yeah, no, I haven't watched baseball except outside of the World Series and the playoffs for years. And if they would have been back this past, starting now or starting a couple weeks ago, we're already been playing, I would have for sure watched them because there's nothing else going on. I know that they kind of already get that in the summer because there isn't much else going on but golf and NASCAR. But the fact that now they're going to be competing directly with the NHL and the NBA, their viewership's going to look really bad this year.
I'll take it. I'll take all the sports. I don't know about NASCAR still. I tried watching one race and I just was like, this is really hard to see this many left turns in one day for me. So I'm done with it.
You just need to go right one time. Just
one really all-out race. Make it like a death race with Jason Statham. That'd be fantastic.
Be a good one.
Yeah.
Another piece of news that came about us today was for the Detroit Lions fans. I don't know if they're happy about this or not, but Martha Ford is stepping down as owner. She's 94 years old. Maybe she caught the COVID. Nobody knows. But her daughter, Sheila Ford Hamp, is stepping in, at least for now. Is this a step in the right direction because we just have a new name in there, even though it's a Ford? Or should the Fords just sell the team all day long here?
I mean, I've been saying sell the team for years, so that's what in my opinion, it doesn't really change anything. If it's under the Ford's ownership, nothing's going to really change. who knows why she stepped down. She's 94. I don't really think I mean, I can't believe that she actually had any say in what's actually going on during anything in the past few years. So I don't really know what to think of it. I don't think it really matters unless this actually precludes them selling the team or doing something more drastic. If that's the case, then great. But I don't think it really means anything.
Yeah, a while back I heard an interview. I forget which team's owner it was, but they were interviewing an owner, kind of asking him about like how you see some of these teams, like they're kind of in prominence or trying to get back to prominence and winning Super Bowls for the NFL, but at any level of any sport. But then there's all these teams that just seem to kind of not know what they're doing. And this guy was saying that, there's really 10 or less owners in the NFL that like all they want to do is win a Super Bowl. And that is their main goal. The rest of them are either in it for money or just like owning a team because they want to own a team and they like their name on things. Like there's really like a third of the league that just all they want to do when they come into work and when they hire people and when they make moves is to win a championship. And the Fords just aren't that family. They aren't. I don't think that's like their end all be all. Like, yeah, they'd love to. That makes you the most money when you win a Super Bowl. But as long as they own it, I just don't think that the Lions and the organization is going to have that massive of a intention or passion about winning a Super Bowl. And as a fan, that stinks, but like I know they want to be good, and I think like they make some good moves. Like it depends who you hire, because they're not just saying like we don't want to win, but like if I don't think their end all be all is like let's get to where we can compete every single year, and unless ownership changes, I really don't think that's going to change.
Yeah, I think I think I agree with that just because I think was it right before they hired Bob Quinn, the NFL basically went right out and said, we will help you with this hiring process to get you a GM that we feel is going to be the best fit to get you guys on track to win now. And, Martha Ford, Tom Lawand, all the people higher ups for the Detroit Lions organization were basically like, we got this. And then they hired Bob Quinn because he had ties to a winning organization. They think that's a guarantee. And then, then Bob Quinn hires his buddy from the Patriots, Matt Patricia, and then we're just not seeing progress. In fact, the last 2 years we've seen them go backwards from where Jim Caldwell had them. So I think that kind of sucks. I think that they want to win, they just want to do it on their own merit. And even if the NFL is going to offer them help, you got to take that help.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yep.
All right. Well, this week we are due to do the defensive line power rankings by way of draft style. So we're going to have Isaiah kick it off with pick number 1. I'll go 2. Ben will go 3, and then back around to Isaiah. So,
right.
Here's I don't have the sound effect or sound bite on me right now, but the draft sound. Go.
All right, cool. I can hear the boos too. So, I don't know. I had 3 teams that I kept moving around in my top 3 positions. I am going to go with a team that did lose one of their better, in my opinion, linemen, but they still just have a solid group there. They just got a good draft pick to help out with that. I'm going to go with the San Francisco 49ers. Armstead, Solomon Thomas, Kinlaw, Nick Bosa, and Dee Ford.
Yeah, I think Javon Kinlaw obviously was a nice replacement for DeForest Buckner. Mm-hmm. But Javon Kinlaw, again, he's a specialty defensive lineman. And I think that's kind of where he was going back and forth, and who was going to be the first defensive lineman taken in this draft. Was it Kinlaw? Was it Derek Brown? Because they each have their own specific specialty. Derek Brown is the run stuffer, and Javon Kinlaw is the pass rusher. And I think the 49ers are already stacked with pass rushers. Yeah. They're going to move Solomon Thomas probably to the interior a little bit when he was drafted right after Mitchell Trubisky in 2016 then. But I think there was a nice replacement. I mean, obviously they didn't even need to draft Kinlaw to still have a top 5 defensive line. Yeah. But I can definitely see why that puts them in the top 2 for me. All right. Pick number 2, I am going to go with the Washington Redskins. Chase Young just topping off a really freaky athletic edge with Montez Sweat, who set the record for the fastest 40 time of an edge rusher at a combine. And then Ryan Kerrigan is obviously the older guy now, and I think that's probably why they felt it was time to get Chase Young, regardless of position need, was Kerrigan's age. So I think that is the long-term replacement there. And then obviously, and in the interior, Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen are nice little pieces there too. And Matt Ioannidis on top of that is just a great rotation.
I think they have the deepest defensive line in the NFL as well. I mean, obviously you get a little bit of star power, and you drafted Chase Young, but their depth even before Chase Young, in my opinion, at least put him in the top 5.
Yeah, that put him over the top for me for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. I had him at number 1 basically until right before we started recording, and I didn't want part of my mind to be set by having a Madden league that's 5 years in the future, so these guys have already developed. It's a strong defensive line, but they still got a bit of youth. But yeah, I could have easily had them at number 1. I was just a game time decision to change them, but yeah, they're stacked everywhere, even if it is Young.
Yeah, I can't knock the 49ers. I think Redskins, 49ers to me are 1 and 2 almost unanimously on a lot of lists. And I think when people remembered why the 49ers got to the Super Bowl, it was their crazy awesome defensive front, and then their running game was just really effective. So I think with, how nice Nick Bosa was already as a rookie, and then having all these other pieces, DeForest Buckner obviously was nice, but you replaced him again like we talked about. So I think – you can't knock anyone for putting the 49ers first. It was the reason they got as far as they did last year. So,
yeah.
All right, Ben.
All right, number 3, I'm going with the Chargers. Joey Bosa, Linval Joseph, Jerry Tillery, Melvin Ingram, Uchenna Nwosu. I mean, I would say Bosa and Ingram probably top tandem in the NFL. Can't really beat that. And another very deep defensive line. I honestly, those 3 that we said, I was literally flip-flopping all 3 of those the entire time I was making this list, because I feel like there's a pretty, I wouldn't say it's a severe drop-off, but there's a pretty clear tier, cutoff after these top 3, and we'll see where we go from here. But between these 3 and then the rest of the NFL. So.
Yeah, I want Joey Bosa to stay healthy for more of a year now, and obviously that makes that killer elite edge rush tandem with, like you said, Ingram and Bosa. But that's definitely, I had him at 4 on my list, so they're high. I
had him at 4 as well.
So you're gonna go with your 4, Isaac?
Yeah. Well, let me ask a quick side question. If you could pick, if you were doing a fantasy style draft, if you could pick Nick Bosa or Joey Bosa, who would you take if you were a coach?
Joey still. Obviously, we only seen 1 year out of Nick Bosa. Mm-hmm. Nick Bosa could have the same amount of injury issues that Joey's ever had at some point. I think Joey, just every time he is healthy out there, is super disruptive, super effective, and I think he's proven it long enough now in the NFL where you can't see enough out of Nick Bosa at the NFL level for me to be like, I'm picking you over your brother, because they're both game-changing defensive ends, but we've just seen it longer from Joey, and that's why I would say him.
I'd agree. Yep.
Yeah, me too. I think it's a closer conversation than you might think, just because of how good of a year Nick had and just the youth. But yeah, so I'm going to go with my number 3. I'm going to go with a guy who their head guy missed a couple games because he was on some newspapers last year for bonking someone in the head. I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett, who we were talking about, obviously. I like Olivier Vernon still, even though he's bounced around a little bit and maybe not been amazing everywhere, but I think he's just been solid everywhere he's been. But he's kind of a at this point, almost moving around. But yeah, Sheldon Richardson, Ogunjobi, I think they're pretty solid. They don't stand out really, to me. They aren't people I would go after or really put in front of everyone. But when you got those 2 guys lining up beside them, yeah, I think that just fills in those gaps. So I'd say the Cleveland Browns is my next pick.
Okay, I had the Browns actually at 10 on my list, but I'm not going to knock that pick. I think they're
12.
Plenty serviceable. But I think, like you even said it yourself, Ogunjobi, you're not really jumping out at some of these guys, and Sheldon Richardson hasn't really done a whole lot in the last couple of years. Olivier Vernon's got age, and Adrian Claiborne, he's a nice depth piece that's been around for a minute too. But Myles Garrett, keep him out of trouble. He's super effective, but it's not enough for me to put him where you had him at 3 or 4 here, but it would be somewhere to put him for me. I still have him at 10 on my list, so it's not a bad thing. I think that's why I'm going to run up to the board to take them at 5 here is the Dallas Cowboys. DeMarcus Lawrence, another X factor in Madden, obviously, but also just effective every time I've watched the Cowboys play on their 4 p.m. games most of the time because everybody wants to watch them on Fox. But then you got like Gerald McCoy and Dontari Poe, who have done it a long time. They've got age as well, but they're very strong and experienced, and they've done themselves pretty nicely in their NFL careers. Tyrone Crawford is effective. And then they got Aldon Smith back from suspension off the commissioner's exempt list this year. I don't know what we expect from him. Same with I don't know what I'm going to expect from Rob Gronkowski after sitting a year out. But Aldon Smith's been out for like 3 years now. So this is going to be interesting. But if he is even 75% of the player that he was, that's a really good rotation there at the edge too. So I'm going to put the Dallas Cowboys here at 5.
I feel like you can't really go wrong there either. They just have a lot of experience. I don't think they're ever gonna. They aren't gonna make a ton of mistakes. So I feel like you can't go wrong putting them top 5 or 6 because I had them at 9, but we could have moved that around. 6, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with the Rams, solely because I think Aaron Donald is the best football player in the NFL. Probably the most disruptive interior lineman, I don't know, in the past, you'd probably say 10 years that I've seen. Just an absolute beast. And, I mean, they're complementary pieces. I wouldn't say they jump off the page to you, to anybody. But, they're obviously made better just because of Donald. So, yeah, I'm going with them at 6.
Yeah, I mean, they got Ashawn Robinson this year off of the Detroit Lions. Michael Brockers has been a above-average defensive end. Not a big fan of Samson and Abukum, but, Aaron, I guess if you really put a lot of weight into Aaron Donald, obviously he is the best interior defensive lineman in the NFL in years that we've seen. So if you put that kind of weight into it, then I can see why it would be somewhat high. But I have him at 17 on my list. Just because I don't really like any of the other pieces. But like I said, I don't put a whole lot of blame on it if you think Aaron Donald is so elite that he just makes the defensive line around him better, which he does. So
that was one of the tough things making this list is like a lot of these teams have like one guy who's just amazing. And obviously not everyone has an Aaron Donald for sure, but they have like one guy who's just a standout and then they just have kind of just a bunch of names. And it was hard for me to rank like where those teams go with just like, yeah, this one guy's taking up so much space and so much interest from the offensive line. Those other guys eat. Like we saw that with Aaron Donald and Dante Fowler. Dante Fowler came in there and I mean he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but he had a resurgence a bit that year that just because Aaron Donald takes up so much he's double teamed every single down. So yeah, I'm gonna go with a team next that also, I think Aaron Donald, I'd say he's the best defensive player in the league. I'm going to go with the second best defensive player in the league. But they just had another guy on their list that I like accompanying him more than I like the team accompanying Donald. I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears. Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks, obviously the corner pieces or the cornerstones of that line. But Eddie Goldman, I don't think is that bad. Lyle Nichols, not too fond of. But Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks, like when half your rush is that good, like that just puts you way up in my list.
I mean, I know plenty of people that watch this that would be very happy to see the Bears go off here, for sure.
I had them later, but
I won't knock it. I had them at 8, so yeah. I had them as the top NFC North defensive line.
For sure.
So yeah, I think a lot of people actually don't really think about like Eddie Goldman and Bilal Nichols. I think they're pretty solid. And then Akeem Hicks has been extremely effective, and the Khalil Mack is on a whole nother level again. So
yeah. Well, Hicks obviously, I think he dealt with some injury concerns last year too. So if he's healthier, I think he's getting a little older, but I mean, yeah, Akeem Hicks is going to eat as long as Khalil Mack's being double teamed. Same with Donald.
I went back and forth on seeing if I should put Khalil Mack on the linebacker list or if
Yeah,
I
I
would
was
put him.
debating that. Well, when I was reading through the list and everything, I
Yeah.
was, is he a 3-4 linebacker? But I mean, he's everything.
So
He's that.
they also got Bears also have Robert Quinn at linebacker. So they picked up Robert Quinn. I'm like, do I put Robert Quinn instead of Khalil Mack and then move Khalil Mack to the linebacker? That would change things quite a bit on my list.
Yes.
Well, that would change. I mean, that would bring them way down the list, in my opinion, on D-line.
Yeah, Akeem Hicks is still very good, but
Yeah.
again, injury issues. It's just Robert Quinn is just like 32 now. So he was good when he was with the Rams several years back, but that would change a lot of things. I battled back and forth on when I was putting all these depth charts together and stuff. It was who do I put at the D line for these unique 3-4 defenses.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, and if it wasn't for Khalil Mack, they'd definitely be down the list quite a ways. But once you put him on there, I mean, the only guy that really gives Aaron Donald a run for his money with best defensive player in the league, but they got to be high up.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with the Broncos. I didn't put Von Miller on defensive line for the Broncos, and that would change things for them too because I had them lower on my list. But yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But I was interested on how I was going to put that in here. Another really strong interior defensive lineman. I think the second best interior defensive lineman in the NFL is Fletcher Cox for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to put them here at number 8. They have Derek Barnett, who I really liked out of Tennessee. They got Javon Hargrave from Pittsburgh this year. Brandon Graham from Michigan. There's a little bit of homer in me that loves that guy. And then Josh Sweat had the second fastest 40 time at a combine of any edge rusher. So freaky athletic on the edge as well. I just liked all the rotational pieces they have too. So I'm going to happily put them at 8.
I'll go at 9. I'll go with the New Orleans Saints.
Nice pick.
Obviously, you have Cam Jordan, Sheldon Rankins, David Onyemata, Marcus Davenport, Malcolm Brown. I just feel like they're pretty well balanced across the line. Obviously, Cam Jordan's the star there.
But I like Marcus Davenport out of Texas San Antonio. He was a small school guy that I was really excited about.
Good. Sheldon Rankins, he's obviously been very solid. But yeah, I mean, I debated they were either 9 or 10 for me, though. I was kind of back and forth.
There were 6 on my list, so they're actually next to go after the Eagles for me. So I'm like, hey, good pick.
Yeah.
So sweet. What you got, Isaiah? Number 10.
Right. Man, I'm like looking at my list and going back and forth with a couple teams. So as they are currently constructed, I am going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think Yannick Ngakoue is long for Jacksonville. At least I hope he's not. He seems to just – I have never seen a player hate where he is more than I have seen Yannick Ngakoue. As long as they have him and Josh Allen, they are a top 10 or close to a top 10. I think, we have them in the top 10 line in the league. Both those guys are studs. And then I don't know many of the other names, but I like Josh Allen and Yannick Ngakoue.
Yep. Yeah, Josh Allen, again, I think I had an 11, which still is really close, obviously, to where we are. But Josh Allen, he was really slow out of the gate last year. And then once he got to like week 8 or 9, his motor kicked in or something. And he started performing really well and made a run for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Defensive Rookie of the Year.
I've heard that like the biggest thing with college players going to the NFL is the speed of the game. Like, so he figured that out towards the end of last year. So I put a lot of trust in that.
Yeah. No, I mean, Jaguars have plenty of talent there. I mean, Taven Bryan was out of Florida, and he's been a little bit inconsistent, but I think he's definitely have a lot of potential. Davon Hamilton's been around for a couple of years. So it's a good pick for right around where we are in that middle tier of defensive lines. At 11, then I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Cam Hayward, just that longevity, that experience, and that productiveness his entire career. That really kind of leads right there with T.J. Watt, who's probably going to be up there with his brother J.J. on sacks at some point. He went off last year. Stephon Tuitt's been really good. Tyson Alualu's kind of fallen down since he's hit his 30s. And Chris Wormley, just because he's from Michigan, I had to say his name.
God, he's with them. Yeah.
All right, second hypothetical. Would you rather take the Bosa brothers or the Watt brothers?
That is
Injury
really
concerns and all.
I would take the Bosa brothers.
Yeah,
That's tough. That is so tough, though. That's a harder question than your first
JJ's
one.
a little more. JJ's a lot more versatile than any of the other.
Right.
Than either of the Bosas. So he can move inside. You know, he can do a lot more, and obviously TJ can do a lot.
Yeah, he can play somewhat coverage linebacker.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's better for pass rush, but
Right.
I think what pulls that one from me and why I picked Bosa is because they're both purebred pass rushers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have those purebred pass rushers coming off the edge every single snap, and then like the way and Watt, like I don't want to discount his talent. He still performs when he's healthy, but he's now in his 30s, and he's dealt with injuries even more than Bosa has for the last couple years. Joey Bosa, I meant. So I would say that's why I'm leaning towards Bosa's, but that's a tough question for sure.
Yeah. If you could confirm that Watt would be in for 14 games out of the season, it'd be tougher for me to pick the Bosa brothers. But yeah. Watt, I don't know the last time he's played a full 16-game season. At least one or back-to-back 16-game seasons even. But
I'd flip it back on to if I could get Joey Bosa for 14 games out of the season too.
True.
I still might
True.
go with Bosa's. It's a tough question for me. Because if you have them on 6-year contracts too. Like let's go with the 6-year contracts then. Like
then it's Bosa's all day.
Watt's playing until he's 35, and then
Right.
it's I go with Bosa because they're at least going to be in their late 20s, early 30s by the time they're done with their contract. So I don't know, fun hypotheticals. But all right, who's number 12 here, Ben?
Yeah, this is where it gets a little tougher because I feel like there's a lot of teams kind of in that 12 to even like 18 range, to where depending on how you rank or what you value. Right now, I think I'm honestly gonna go. I'm gonna go with the Vikings. Mostly because I watch them a lot more. Being a Lions fan, so I watch the NFC North a lot more, and I'm always pretty impressed by their defensive line. I feel like there's no big names, but they're just very all-around solid. Anthony Zettel, I feel like, is a sleeper. He's a big-time run stuffer, and I feel like they're going to be very, very solid again this year.
So I'm surprised nobody's biting on Everson Griffin right now. He's still sitting as a free agent. He's been successful for a while with the Vikings. I wouldn't be surprised if he took a lower amount just to come back to play with the Vikings and have that familiarity.
How old is he now, though?
I think he's 30.
Yeah.
Maybe 31. But like Daniil Hunter, obviously another effective edge rusher. And then they replaced Linval Joseph with Michael Pierce, who I actually believe is even better. But then Shamar Stephen, I'm not high on. Anthony Zettel, we know him from the Lions, and then Iafede Odenigbo. Just smaller depth pieces there. But if they get Everson Griffin back, they'd be even up higher on this list for me, I think. But these are all what we currently have. The same reason I probably shouldn't have made my defensive backs list already with what we're hearing about Jamal Adams. So you never know. And like you said, Unique Ngakoue, you don't know what to expect. So it's just kind of as it is right now, to be determined. But yeah, it's a good pick. Number 13, Isaiah.
Right. I actually have 2 teams ahead of them left on our list, but I just want to be the one to say them. I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions. I still like Trey Flowers a lot. I don't mind Danny Shelton. I think he's not as good as Snacks Harrison for run stuffing and being that middle of the line guy. But I do love seeing the 2 Aquaras next to each other. We've talked about it before when we were talking about the draft. It would just be awesome if they will just kind of step up because they're with their brother. But yeah, I just feel like picking the Lions because I like I like some names on that list, so I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions.
I think because we know them so well, we're more
Yeah, I
apt
think that's part of
to
it.
put them higher up. I have them at 15, and I tried to keep as much homer out of it as possible. But again, the reason I had to try to keep him out is I don't know what to expect from Julian Aquara. I actually really don't like Romeo Aquara, so I'm banking on what we said in earlier shows about the sibling rivalry and see if they really help push each other to maximize their talent or their potential. Because I think nothing – I mean, you probably know it with Adam. You guys are always trying to see who threw the fastest fastball. And that's why you guys are playing minor league baseball these days. But I just I think that motivates you quite a bit is if you have a brother that is competing for the same thing you are, and that's to get the quarterback. So we can hope that's going to help. We can hope that Deshaun Hand steps in for Ashawn Robinson this year. We can hope that Danny Shelton is what he was when he first started his career with the Browns for a couple years. Kind of lazy with the Patriots. We'll see what happens when he comes back. It's a lot of the free agent pickups with Danny Shelton, Jamie Collins. They're lazy people that have shown they give up on a lot of plays. So, and especially if the Lions struggle out of the gate this year, we could see a lot of laziness this year.
My issue is just the lack of pass rush. I mean, the NFL is a passing league. I mean, it's not. Yeah, stopping the run is first and foremost. If you can't stop the run in the NFL, you're just going to get ran train. They're going to run train on you. But it's a passing league first, and there's just such a lack of pass rush on that roster that they didn't address with the draft. And I'm not even saying they had to or had a chance to, but there's nobody on that list like blows my. I mean, Trey Flowers is solid. If he was your second or third pass rusher that you're really counting on, then maybe. But that's my issue, and that's why I had them down in the 20s, just because there's no pass rush there.
Yeah, and like we said, we don't know what to expect with Julian Aquara. Romeo Aquara, we saw he was like beginner's luck with the Lions when we picked him up off the Giants.
Yeah.
Waivers like 2 years ago. Last year he did nothing.
Yep.
And, none of the pass rush did. And I think that's the thing. The Lions probably would have grabbed Chase Young if he would have somehow fell to us at 3. They took Okuda, which, that's a good long-term move in the secondary. But we saw what happened. The Lions had a strong secondary going into last year too, especially after they picked up Justin Coleman in free agency. They looked really good on paper, and we saw they actually played pretty well in the first couple of games. And then without that pass rush, they're getting burned. You can't cover anybody for more than 4 or 5 seconds. You gotta get to the quarterback. Otherwise, no matter how good of a secondary you have, no one can keep up with any invented route along the way. Like after 3 or 4 seconds, the play is eventually going to break down, and players are just going to run, and quarterback's going to find someone open. You can't cover someone that long.
Yep.
So I can see why you have them. I have them 15, pretty much right in the middle, which I felt like was still a tough choice for me, but I think I'm banking a little bit on the Aquara brothers pushing each other to the max and maybe finding some success there, but I don't know. Number 14, I'm going to go with the Carolina Panthers. I mean, obviously they get Derek Brown, the first defensive tackle taken in this year's draft, but then the next round they go and get Yetur Gross-Matos, so they win and all in to address the defensive line. Brian Burns had a pretty decent rookie season. We'll see how well it continues. And K1 Short's always been a pretty strong interior lineman too. So that's why I feel like they can still be right in this range.
I agree with that. I like Gross-Matos a lot. I think this past year at Penn State, he was a monster. I mean, there were periods of time where he was unblockable. So, I mean, I like that pick. All right.
15.
I am going to go with – let me see here. Yeah, we'll go with we're going to go with the Bengals. I really like Carlos Dunlap and Geno Atkins. Geno Atkins is a monster in the middle. I mean, he's not a young man anymore, I would say, but he's certainly still a beast in the middle. And I like Sam Hubbard from Ohio State a lot. I think he's got a chance to be a very solid piece for him.
I can dig it. Isaiah, number 16.
All right, 16. I am going to go with Man, not a ton sticking out to me. I'm going to go with the Houston Texans. We talked about J.J. Watt earlier. Yeah, if he's healthy, he is incredibly special. He is versatile. He is getting to the quarterback pretty much any play, unless it's just a quick throw. But, yeah, the rest doesn't do much for me, but kind of similar thing to Aaron Donald. As long as J.J. Watt's taking up all that space, those other guys will get some success.
Yeah, Aaron Donald stays healthy. That's why that was my knock on J.J. Watt. I had them bottom 8. I had him at 26.
You're at 26 for me as well.
I just Winnie Merciless, I like him too. Charles Omenihu, he's from Texas. I mean, he did okay there too, and so there's potential there. But Ross Blacklock, they picked him up in the draft this year, so we don't know what we're going to get from him. And Angelo Blackson is probably one of the worst starting right ends in the league. So that's my knock on it. But that's the fun of this draft is you take who you would want next and go on from there. So I can dig it. Isaiah's distracted. It's all good though.
Yeah, sorry, wedding planning stuff. I'll put my phone down.
It's all good. It's big times, man. Big time. And you guys are getting married in 3.5 months?
Yeah, October.
Yeah, that's quick engagement, but makes it fun, I guess, to plan that hard. That's why you're taking off of Madden, huh?
A little bit. That's what the Texans so hot.
That's why I took the Texans.
Man.
I'm gonna go with the Baltimore Ravens here at number 17. Derek Wolfe from the Broncos did okay there. Brandon Williams has been a strong interior lineman. Calais Campbell, obviously, like you said about Geno, not a young man anymore, but still pretty effective. And then Pernell McPhee spent some time with the Bears. I mean, there's a lot of pretty well-traveled veterans there. That's a really old defensive line, but they've all had pretty effective careers. So I feel like I can put them here at 17 by now.
I'd agree. We're at 18.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with. See, I debated. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Bills.
Yes, I was waiting for you to pick your Madden team. I was like, come on, pick your Madden team.
I think Ed Oliver is gonna be a star. If not, I wouldn't even consider him not a star already. And just a really solid defensive line. Yeah, I definitely slot them into.
Yeah, and then they get AJ Epinesa.
They get Epinesa, who honestly I was kind of down on in the draft because he was a monster 2 years ago in college, and I don't know if it was just like I didn't do a ton of film study looking at him or anything like that, but he fell off in big games for me last year for Iowa. Now Iowa wasn't that great, so that might be part of it. I don't know if he had any injury issues or he was just getting double teamed every play. It's quite possible, but he was not because a lot of people had him, going into that
first round, yeah,
potentially, one of the first defensive linemen taken, obviously after the first the top tier guys. So I think he fell off a little bit for me, but I still think he's definitely talented. And team him up with another young defensive lineman, Ed Oliver, who's he's a little undersized, but he makes up for it with his quickness. I feel like they're going to be a pretty good defensive line for the near future.
Yeah, I mean, Latulele, he takes up space, and then Jerry Hughes was good from Texas Christian all the way to the NFL. Jerry Hughes has always been a decent pass rusher. Yep. Not big on Mario Addison, but at this point we're looking at some pretty middle level teams at this point. So I think that's a pretty good spot right there. That's why I had him next available in mine. So
yep.
All right, number 19, Isaiah.
All right. I'm at another point where I could pick a couple different teams. I'm not going to pick the team I dislike so much. So I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. Chris Jones and Frank Clark holding it down. Got some really strong names with the rest of those three guys, but I don't know much about them. But yeah, Chris Jones and Frank Clark I think are two studs. They were really I know people don't talk much about the Chiefs defense, but they're kind of the besides Honey Badger, they were kind of the shining part of that defense in the past couple of years.
Yeah, I mean the rest of the guys, they're rotational pieces, but they're solid rotational pieces. They keep their guys pretty fresh. You know, Tano, Passano has been pretty solid, and then Nadi, and then Okafor had some success even when he was with the Rams. So just a bunch of pretty solid depth guys that you can kind of rotate in, and obviously with the strong play from Chris Jones and Frank Clark, I can see him as a good pick here. They're one of my next two teams available on my big board. So good pick there. I'm gonna go with my only one then left in a row. Otherwise, everyone in my top 19, obviously other than the Texans, are now going to be taken, and that is the Tampa Bay Bucks. And that's, you know, Ndamukong Suh, Vita Vea, and then William Golston and Jason Pierre-Paul with his 9 fingers is doing some damage. So
That's another line that's getting up there in age a little bit.
Yeah, other than Vita Vea is he'll go in his 3rd year now, but he's played pretty well at his position, and you know, Suh when he feels like it, he's obviously still pretty disruptive. And then Jason Pierre-Paul, you don't hear so much about him anymore other than news with fireworks, but he's still pretty effective. So I think at this spot at pick 20, I think that's a good fit for him.
I'd agree. I had him at was that 20 or was that 19?
There should be 20. I think the Chiefs went 19.
Okay. Yep. I had them at 20 then. Cool. I am gonna go with. Man, it's a debate. Let me see what I had on my notes here. Yeah, I'll go with the Patriots here. Just because, I mean, there's a couple Michigan guys on here, so I'm a little biased. Chase Winovich, obviously they picked Josh Uche, who, in my opinion, is actually better suited for the NFL than he was in college, because they'll actually find a position for him, and he can, you know, early on he can probably just rush the passer, similar to kind of what Chase Winovich did at the beginning of the year last year for him. Lawrence Guy, Bo Allen, John Simon, I think is pretty solid. Obviously no huge names there where they're just going to be monsters coming off the edge or anything like that, but I feel like overall as a unit they're going to be pretty solid. And I am actually really interested to see what they do with Uche, because I think he's athletic enough to be, you know, to be a stand-up linebacker in that 3-4, and they could do some interesting things with him on different blitzes and maybe put his hand in the dirt a little bit depending on his matchup. So
yeah, I do see a little bit of the bias there. And the same thing I try to do with the Lions is try not to. But I see a lot of it sounds like you put a lot on like Josh Uche, which we don't know what we're going to get yet. I think like you said, I agree that he's probably better suited for the NFL, unlike former Michigan player Rashawn Gary, who still hasn't done a whole lot at the NFL level. But I'm not high on John Simon or Bo Allen or Lawrence Guy, and I think Chase Winovich has the energy that could turn him into like Kyle Vandenbosch at some point, just a constant motor. And I really like that about defensive ends.
You know what's funny? We were talking earlier about like, well, we got to look at it as it stands. But the way the Patriots run their organization, they're going to have like 5 different defensive linemen by the end of the year anyway. So it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, ultimately, and they find success no matter who their personnel is. Really, they could find a bunch of 3rd graders off of a bus, and Bill Belichick would be like, "You're going to be a star." Like I have him at 28, but like I definitely get the perspective of a ton of potential and just the way that the regime is ran there. Like there could be success no matter what. So
I think I put stock into the fact that they're just going to be good regardless. In my opinion.
Matter what, Jared Stidham's at quarterback, but we're looking at 40 touchdown passes this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think their defense is just going to be solid no matter what. So
did you see those Jared Stidham workout videos? He's throwing for 45 at least.
There's a lot of promise.
All right, I am going to go with the Indianapolis Colts next. Buckner with the 49ers earlier. This is the team that got him. You also have Justin Houston there, who I think was just a stud for the Chiefs. I really like him a lot. Cool face mask. And then couple guys I don't really recognize other than that. So
again, we're probably at that point here in the draft in this draft where we're like, okay, yeah, we'll look at the stars here. Like I like Ben Benogu from Texas Christian, but
great name.
yeah, but then really Kamoko Toure, they've got some cool names on that roster. Sheldon Day was a backup rotational piece for the 49ers. So like they've got some guys there. But I think this is a good spot. They were literally next in line for me. And DeForest Buckner, Justin Houston, if he wasn't as old as my grandpa, would be even higher on this list.
Right. Yeah, little age, but.
Yeah, but, I mean, he's still effective. He still did pretty well. So
I think he's got a solid 2, maybe 2.5 years left in his tank.
Okay. And then after the half, he's going to retire midseason like
No, he's just going to, not do great.
Okay.
Break his arm or something. I don't know.
I'm going to go with my next in line here, Miami Dolphins. Okay. Shaq Lawson, David Gottschall. Christian Wilkins I like quite a bit. And Agba has been pretty successful with the Browns. And Raekwon Davis, I think they got this year in the draft. So with all their picks that they had, they're a copious amount of picks. So I think I like Shaq Lawson still. He's him a little bit, Ben, from playing with the Bills and Madden, but
yeah, I think I traded him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's not on the Bills anymore either in real life, so it makes sense. Yeah. But at 23, it's a comfortable spot for me to put the Miami Dolphins. Probably the highest we put them on a lot of our lists, to be honest. Yeah, they're still not quite there.
Yeah. I am going to go with I think we're going to go with the Raiders next.
Nice. That was my next in line. Nicely done.
Yep. Mo Hurst. Who else is on this list? Mo Hurst, Cleveland Farrell, Jonathan Hankins, Max Crosby, Malik Collins. I think Farrell's going to be pretty solid. Mo Hurst, he's shown flashes. He hasn't really put it all together yet. He's had some very impressive games, but for a full season, we'll see if he can really put a full dominant season together. So pretty.
Yeah, I mean, Farrell better be impressive. I mean, he was picked at 4th overall, I think, on that year. They had 3 picks. That was a huge reach for me. I remember listening to that draft on the radio because I was at a gun range at that time. But good grief. I think he's got a lot of potential. Those Clemson edge rushers have panned out the last couple of years since Clemson played good. So we'll see what happens for sure.
Yep.
Alrighty. Man. There's really not much else jumping out at me.
We're about there, 25th.
Yeah. You mentioned him earlier that he didn't have a great rookie year, but he's still got a lot of tools, and maybe that's just me as a Michigan fan saying that. I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark. I like Kenny Clark. He's still got youth and still can work a couple things out. Same with Rashawn Gary, though. Like I said, he's got tools up the yin-yang, but it's just how he's being developed that's concerning, and how his first year just really didn't do as well as a lot of people wanted him to, especially Michigan fans. But if they're working out with him this offseason and fine-tuning some things, he could have a really good breakout year this year. Maybe not breakout. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were second to next on my list, so we're finding some of the final scraps here that have even a little bit of talent left, and I think kind of right next to the Packers would be the New York Giants for me. Leonard Williams is a great piece that they got this year, moving right over to the other New York team, and then Dexter Lawrence was an early draft pick, still young, still needs to be developed a little bit, but definitely a lot of potential. O'Shane Ximena is one of my favorite names in last year's draft. And then Delvin Tomlinson's above average defensive tackle, but not anywhere near the superstar realm. And B.J. Hill's depth, I think that's kind of what I'm looking at here, is strong depth, or at least one superstar is kind of what we're going to find here in these final couple of spots.
I'll go with the Denver Broncos. Shelby Harris, Mike Purcell, Jarrell Casey, Bradley Chubb, Draymond Jones. Chubb's really the only name that I really like on that list. But, yeah, we're kind of getting down to the nitty-gritty here as far as D lines go. Obviously, now we can get into the debate a little bit. Von Miller, those 3-4 linebackers. If you put Von Miller on there as an edge rusher, that changes this whole list.
Yeah.
Well, then you got to include a bunch of other guys as edge rushers too, probably.
That's the hard thing about these 3-4 teams. It's like they kind of ruin the talent.
Yeah,
I wanted to find the same amount. I wanted to find the same amount of players to kind of analyze for each team.
Yeah, and I think as a defense, I don't think the Broncos are going to be all that bad. It's just I just don't see any names on that list. If you're not going to include Von Miller, that scare teams. I mean, I think Bradley Chubb's a solid player, and I think he could be pretty darn good this year. But there's no names there that they're going to scare defenses necessarily. But then but if you throw Von Miller on that hypothetical defensive line, that changes.
Yeah, it makes them better. That's kind of what we talked about with like Aaron Donalds and stuff, and like the Fletcher Coxes, that they make such a difference on their team. Even being if they're the sole superstar, it opens up that space. So even if we're going to see Von Miller as a linebacker on these lists, we're going to see the effects of Von Miller as an edge rusher on maybe why these other players will have more success, because it just opens it up for them a little bit more.
Yep.
All right, 28.
Yeah. Man, a lot of good pickings left. Shoot.
We're looking at the slices of pie with flies flying around them.
Yeah, I know. What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams left. Well, I guess the least bad out of the last 5 in my mind, just because I recognize a couple names as we get to this point in the list, is the Seattle Seahawks. Bruce Irvin and Poona Ford are the names I recognize. I do think they're both solid. I like Bruce Irvin was he on the Raiders for a little bit? I liked him when he was there. I do like Poona Ford a bit, but that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I don't know the other guys from. You could have said you graduated with them from high school, and I wouldn't know any different.
I mean, Poona Ford, we like him because of the name. I mean, he really ain't crap as a defensive lineman, in my opinion. I mean, he's better than me, but I mean, I don't know. It's all about the name for me. But again, we're getting to slim pickings here. I'm gonna go with my next available team, and that's the Atlanta Falcons.
Yep.
Yeah, they're nothing too impressive, but they get Dante Fowler, who has shown he can be effective. I like Tack McKinley a little bit here. Reminds me of his interview with Deion Sanders the night he got drafted, and then where he cussed on television. It was great. And then Grady Jarrett's been around for a while, but he's been pretty effective. And then Alan Bailey and Tyler Davison ain't crap, so that's kind of what we're finding.
Yeah. Man, it's 3 teams left, and none of them.
Right?
None of them are great. Let's see. How did I even have these teams set up? We'll just go with the Jets here, just because I think Quinnen Williams has a solid amount of potential, and that's literally the only reason. Quinnen Williams, who are these people? Jordan Willis is the only other name on there that I even recognize. But yeah, I think Quinnen Williams is something to build around if as they do a rebuild here.
Bless me. Thank you.
Yeah, bless me. Exactly. But he even wasn't that great. So I think he's got a chance to be good, but we'll see what happens.
Just like I said, who are these guys?
Yeah, I mean, Steve McClendon, like, who is that?
Yeah, I mean, he's been there for a couple of years, but they're a bunch of 68 overalls on Madden. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
all right.
Bronze normal developments left on our lists.
I know. Who are you gonna leave me with, man? Who are you gonna leave me with?
Just because I don't. Oh, sorry. Someone is cranking the radio outside my window. Hope you guys can't hear that.
It's not too bad.
I'm gonna go with the Tennessee Titans because I don't really care for the Arizona Cardinals, and I don't like having another red team or another bird team. So I'm gonna go with the Titans. I used to live in Tennessee, so I have said nothing about their actual defensive line of why I'm picking them. As you can tell, I don't know who these people are.
Jeffrey Simmons was a first-round pick, so he has to have some level of potential there. So you have to remember that. But he's
I've heard of
only in his second
Daquan.
year. He came off an ACL injury with Mississippi State, so that's a reason probably he fell. But he has a lot of potential. Harold Landry is okay at edge, but then literally terrible with Daquan Jones and Jack Crawford. But it wasn't – I had them next available. So Arizona Cardinals at 32 is right where I had the Arizona Cardinals.
Where I had them.
They are trash. They got Zach Allen to help maybe a little bit in the second round this year's draft. But they should have went first round for a good grief. They're so bad. Jonathan Bullard, Corey Peters, Jordan Phillips. Was Jordan Phillips, is he with the Bills or was he with the Bengals? It was one of those two teams.
This is with the Bengals. I might be wrong.
Yeah. It was Harrison Phillips I think I'm thinking of. That's why.
Yeah. Yep, he was with the Bills.
Okay, so Jordan Phillips has some time, so he's a little bit of experience. But, gosh, there's not a single person that jumps out on this as even a superstar for the Cardinals. So I think they fell perfectly, at least on my list, at 32.
Yep.
Yeah. Zach, Jordan, Corey, and John sound like the four guys who won't give up the beer pong table at the so
nice.
Yeah, it just like doesn't look good for them. They don't even have any cool names, and doesn't sound good.
Oh, cheapers. All right, well, that concludes the defensive line power rankings by way of the draft format. Discussion topic this week: should we be considering athletes as role models? Shout out, who's going?
I can go. I can start.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is kind of I don't know. I feel like I've actually, for some reason, I feel like this was like a essay question in high school at some point or something, or maybe something along the lines of this. I think, as like a little kid or as like a kid growing up, I feel like you should look to athletes as a role model if that's especially if you're growing up in sports. You're going to automatically look to an athlete as a role model. You're gonna be watching sports. You're gonna look to that person. I want to be that person. I want to be like that person. I think as we grow up, as you get older, you understand life a little bit more. I think you kind of realize that, one, there's more to life than sports, even though none of us really want to admit that sometimes. And two, like, these people are just people. These athletes are just people who happen to have exceptional skill at sports. Like they're the best in the world at that certain thing. So they're going to make mistakes. They're going to maybe not live up to the hype you gave them or to the level of the level that you're holding them to when you're younger. So I feel like as you get older, maybe you need to readjust your expectations for them possibly. But when you're younger, you're obviously going to look to an athlete as a role model. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it, especially, but at the same time, I understand like where some of these athletes will come out and say, I don't want to be a role model, or you shouldn't be looking up to me, whatever, because there's a lot of pressure there for a guy. He's just playing a game. Like athletes, guy or girl, the athletes are just playing a game. They just happen to be really, really good at it, and we happen to put a lot of value in that as a society, and we pay them a lot of money to do that. And they're in front of people watching them. So, I get where athletes come from and say they don't want to be role models, but I don't think there's a problem with it as long as as we get older we realize, hey, these people are just people, but they just happen to be really good at sports, and maybe not be so crazy hard on them when mistakes are made. Obviously you got repeat offenders and all that. But,
Pac-Man Jones was such a letdown.
Yeah. There comes a time when it's like, look, this guy's just maybe just not a good dude, or maybe he just has some issues. But I feel like you got to understand that athletes are people too.
Yeah, I mean, you covered pretty much a lot of like the base arguments for they can't help it. They're going to be role models regardless of their stature, whether they want to be or not. Like, these are people that are in a very prestigious position. They are on a higher platform than a lot of us Joes, and I think by default, you know, they're gonna get the clout to be someone that people look up to. I wasn't over immersed in sports. My parents raised me in like t-ball and stuff, and I played like soccer as a kid and all those things. But I wasn't a real sports fan until 6th grade. So maybe I really skipped that phase in my life where I was like, I want to be just like, Derek Jeter or something. Like, because I got into sports when I was about 6th grade. Derek Jeter was cool then, but like LaDainian Tomlinson was the coolest, and Mike Vick and Tom Brady. Those are all people that I grew up really just liking. Like I remember liking Raymond Filioff for the Chicago Rush. He was the quarterback for the Chicago Rush in arena football because it was always on NBC. So I just recognized these names. I put it together, and I'm like, this guy's cool. And these athletes can't help it. But like you said, they're human. They're going to make mistakes. You get the insane ones like Antonio Brown or Pac-Man Jones that can't keep themselves out of trouble. Yeah. But at the same time, we have to have a level of forgiveness for some of these people too, because the only reason we know their mistakes is because they're on the platform that they're on the platform. They asked for it by wanting to play at this level. There are plenty of players that are very good in college that I'm going to go be a doctor or something. I graduated with a kid that was kicking 60-yard field goals in high school on our high school football team and got scholarships to go kick for Michigan or Ohio State. And he's like, I'm going to go to Calvin and I'm going to go study to be a doctor. And I'm like, dude, yeah. Like it's part of the evasion of maybe having all that extra pressure. But when you do try to look up to athletes as role models, that's just another thing to add on to their plate. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a tough question. I often dislike this question just because to me it's like if someone's a good person, then they can be a role model. Like it does, just because they're an athlete doesn't make them a role model or not make them a role model. Worthy of being one, I should say. Being an athlete and being a celebrity makes you a role model a lot of times. But I think one of the tough things is that the longer these guys stay in the limelight, especially like celebrities, if you're talking like actors or like musical artists and stuff, but athletes you can throw into that because the more checks that they put in their balance that have 5, 6 zeros on them, the less or the more detached they get from reality and from how most people live their lives. So if you're looking for just one of these guys to relate to you and to like, if you're looking for LeBron James, like I know he always says I'm a kid from Akron, like I'm really humble, but like he is worth hundreds of millions of dollars and he has been worth hundreds of millions of dollars for decades. And he was on the Sports Illustrated cover at 17. So yes, he like some of these guys grew up with harsh conditions, maybe in the same state in school and neighborhoods that some of us did. But the further they get from that, the more impossible it gets to relate to them and have them as an actual role model of someone to look up to because they just don't know what it's like to live a normal life and have the same values that most normal people do because they can afford to not have those same values. So it's so hard to look at them as like, oh, this person's just a role model because they get farther and farther from it. I mean, you still got people who stay incredibly humble. I live in Holland, and Jason Hansen went to my girlfriend, fiance's work, and she was like, "Oh, he was such a nice, kind, humble man." But she has Kirk Cousins come there sometimes, and like the last time he was in, he was telling his wife about the most recent contract he signed. Like these people just have a different level of what humility even is to them. So it's so tough. I'm in seminary, so I have to say, like, the only role model I have is my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. But on a serious note, like, he is the only infallible human. Like, everyone else fails. Everyone else is going to have problems. Everyone else is going to say stupid stuff. Everyone else is going to do stupid stuff. So if you put all your eggs in those baskets, like, have them as a role model, but just know something could come out where they could tweet something stupid or get caught for breaking a law 10 years ago, or like something can happen, and we hope it doesn't. We hope these guys and girls of professional athletes are genuinely good people and they are not like breaking laws and like being terrible to people. But with such a microscope on them, if they do slip up, we're going to know about it and your role model is going to come crumbling down.
I think Joel kind of alluded to this a little bit, but like it's kind of like the Spider-Man thing. With great power comes great responsibility. So like, they do put themselves in that situation, and it comes with the territory of being a professional athlete and if we go back to the NFL, if you're an NFL football player, you're automatically in that limelight, like regardless of how really. I mean, if you're in the NFL, you're going to be looked up to if if you're on TV every Sunday. So so I think it comes with the territory for sure, but I think, yeah, as we get older, when we're kids, we're just like, oh my gosh, this guy's an incredible football player and I want to be like him. And it's just like, when you're a kid, you don't realize, that maybe you don't want to be like this person because maybe they're actually not that great of a person, or maybe, maybe they have, all the, some problems or whatever. And everybody has their own issues, regardless of whether you're an athlete or not. But I think as you get older, you kind of realize that, or I think you have to realize that. Because we definitely put sports and athletes up on a pedestal as a society, and I think we put more pressure on them. And maybe it's warranted. Maybe maybe they should have that pressure. Maybe they should be held to that higher standard. But I think we definitely put them under that microscope, and they have a lot of pressure. So when they do mess up, I'm never really all that surprised when an athlete messes up. I mean, obviously, if it's something crazy, like, it's different. But when something comes out about an athlete, I'm not all that surprised because I look at it now as they're just a person. Like they made a mistake. We've all made a mistake. So I think to answer the question, I think, yeah, they probably should be role models, but I think as you get older, it has to come with some perspective.
Yeah, so I watched the Michael Vick 30 for 30 on ESPN. I actually recorded it, and I've just finally finished the second part of it. They did a 2-part series for it. And Michael Vick wanted to be a role model. Since he entered the draft, since he came from Virginia Tech, the reason he wanted to be a role model was show people that grew up in the slums of he grew up in Newport News, Virginia, which is just, it's, as he referred to it, even the ghetto. It's like there are a lot of crimes that are committed there, and there's just poor living situations and stuff. And I think being such a high profile athlete in high school and going to Virginia Tech, playing at such a high level of success, being the first pick in the draft in 2001 for the Atlanta Falcons, like, I mean, that's already a lot of pressure on him, but he wanted to be a role model. He said in interviews, I want to be a role model for all these kids that, think they can't do it because of what they're in right now. You can do it. And then, 2005, 2006 rolls around, and, he spends almost 2 years in prison for dogfighting. And because these athletes, they say these things, and then, because they're human, they have a hard time putting aside certain things that they desire, or they have familiarity with. Like, he was still hanging out with on a regular basis his friends from Newport News. And that's typically not going to bode well when you're already on a pedestal, basically, and you're on Sunday night football every single week, and you say you want to do it, and then you don't. These are just the big mistakes that get revealed, but there are plenty of players out there that behind the curtains are doing other things that just because society doesn't deem it bad, they aren't going to expose it. I mean, it's tough, but like you see that a lot of athletes want to be the role model, but then they can't put aside the things that hinder them from really being that full role model, putting away their friends, putting away those distractions on the outside of what you're supposed to focus on. So I think that's kind of what leads some of these players astray.
And I think there's a role for these guys to be, and girls to be, role models, like in certain ways. Like if you are a super lanky, gumpy kid, then have an NBA player as your role model, like a Kristaps Porzingis. If you're this like if you live in that country and you're growing to be 7 foot tall, then heck yeah, like look at him. And if that's something you want to do, if you're getting like bullied at school and you're looking at someone who's been in a similar path than you that's made it, have them as that kind of role model. Or if you like want to live a really healthy lifestyle, have Tom Brady as your role model because he's like obsessed with living healthy lifestyle, like nutrition wise. Like that's fine. And if you like, yeah, if you want to be the best running back ever, have Barry Sanders as your role model. Like those things are like fine, but like to just have them as like your life guide, I think is where people get into the tricky part. Not to say like I don't agree with like the whole shut up and dribble thing, like with LeBron James. Like they have a platform, they have a voice that a lot of people hear, so they should use it. But just to say like to grow up in West Michigan and pick an NFL player who's from West Michigan and be like, I want my life to look exactly like them. You just kind of got to back off and be like, hey, you don't know what their life's like. You don't know what they do behind closed doors, what kind of things they've done in their past. Like if you're just thinking, I want to get out of my current circumstances and make it like that person did, for sure, go for it. But don't say, I want to be this person. That's just where things get dirty and tricky and people are just left disappointed.
Yeah, so I agree with all that. Focus, if you want model, don't want to be a role model, but model your life after their positives, after their successes, what brought them there. Follow that path and use it as motivation and drive to hopefully get there. Again, you still have to have some upper echelon talent on top of that motivation to really ultimately get you to that level. But don't model your life after everything. Ultimately, it's choices. You can model – Lamar Jackson can model his play after Michael Vick and what he saw growing up as a kid. But Lamar Jackson is the choice not to, fight dogs. Like these are choices that you ultimately make as a person. And as you get older, you have the ability to distinguish what's right and what's wrong. So model your life, model your path – in the direction that has brought these players to where they are now. But ultimately, you make the choices for the bad. And if that's really also what you should do because Michael Vick did it, or Pac-Man Jones did it, or Dante Stallworth did it, those things aren't relevant. They're obviously disappointing when you see these big-time guys do that, but you make those choices.
Yeah. It's up to you. I mean, you live your life however you want to. And I think we need to I'm not saying we shouldn't hold athletes to that high standard, but I think we also just need to understand, obviously these egregious crimes are kind of set aside, but just when somebody makes a mistake, when a tweet comes out about them when they were 18 years old or 16 years old or whatever, understand that they were 18 years old, they were 16 years old. Obviously not a good thing. You don't never want to say that's okay, but understand that they're a human, they were a teenager, or they were, I don't care if it's something, I care, but if it came out when they were 30, they made a mistake, they're still a human. So
Donald Trump's 73, he's still tweeting out mistakes all the time. There's people that need to control their own tongue, make their own choices.
Yeah, just understand these people are human, but and yes, they're put on a pedestal, and yes, they should be, they probably should be, and they obviously should hold themselves. We should hold them to a high standard, but don't be necessarily taken aback if something crazy like that happens, because it's gonna happen. They're humans. They're not perfect.
Yeah. And I think something with just picking role models in general, if you're a younger person, pick someone you actually know, at least somewhat, someone you could call or talk to in a moment's notice. Because if your biggest role model in life is Steph Curry, great guy, at least from what I've seen, great guy, great family, great husband, but you're never going to be able to ask him for advice. And the only advice you would get from him is a tweet or an interview or a snippet or one sentence. Pick someone in your life, whether it's your father or an uncle if you don't have a father. Or
anybody, yeah. You just got to slide into Steph Curry's DMs. He'll respond.
Yeah. But but if you want a model of something, then yeah, pick that from an athlete. But don't just be oh, this is the person I am trying to be like. This is the person I'm going to model everything after. Right. So you're never going to know how they went about it fully. And two, yeah, you're it's just pretty unrealistic, and it's way better to have your role model be able to sit next to you when you're going through events and milestones in your life.
Yeah, good stuff, guys. Oh man. Well,
the 6'3" is getting deep.
The sick man. I don't know what we can talk about next now. How do we follow this?
Wow.
Well, Ben, definitely appreciate you coming on. We'll make sure you stop on again. This is fun.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah. So next week will be linebackers, and we'll be back for some more fun on the 6-3 podcast. Thanks for tuning in today, guys.
Yeah. See you.
See you.